I trembled as I set down the two-tiered dinosaur cake, my hands aching after 3 days of meticulous work. You actually made this yourself, Jessica, my daughter-in-law, raised an eyebrow, inspecting my creation. That's quaint in a grandmotherly way. Later, at the dinner table, I overheard her whisper to my son, "Margaret is so useless, always trying to insert herself where she's not needed." Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to show it. Instead, I pulled out my phone and sent a simple message to my bank, "Cancel card MER4382 immediately." She had no idea I'd just cut off her $8,000 monthly spending spree. This is the story of how I reclaimed my power, saved my family, and taught my daughter-in-law the most valuable lesson about respect. Follow until the end and comment where you're watching from. I'll share 2 other stories about mothers-in-law who stood up against disrespect. At 72, my hands aren't as steady as they once were. The rosettes on Nathan's dinosaur birthday cake had taken me weeks to practice, each delicate swirl of buttercream requiring intense concentration. But for my only grandson's 5th birthday, no effort seemed too great. That morning in Rochester, an unseasonably warm spring day, made me nervous about the frosting as I carefully placed the cake in my Buick's back seat. I'd risen at 5 a.m. to add the final touches to the fondant dinosaurs circling the base, each species meticulously researched because Nathan had been obsessed with paleontology since he was 3. The Ankylosaurus was his favorite. I'd spent extra time on those distinctive armor plates and club tail. William and Jessica's home in the Cobbs Hill neighborhood loomed before me, one of those modern structures with imposing windows and minimalist furnishings that never felt particularly welcoming. My son had done well at his accounting firm, and at 43, he could afford the lifestyle that Jessica expected. I arrived an hour early as planned, knowing there would be preparations where an extra pair of hands might be useful. "Mom, you're here." William greeted me with a quick, distracted hug as I carefully maneuvered through their front door with my precious cargo. Jessica's still setting up in the backyard. The rental company delivered the wrong chairs, and she's on the phone with them now. "Where should I put the cake?" I asked, my arms beginning to ache from holding the heavy creation. "Oh, in the kitchen, I guess, on the island." I made my way through their open-concept living room into the pristine kitchen with its marble countertops and stainless steel appliances. As I set the cake down, I noticed a large white bakery box on the counter. "William," I called out. "What's this?" My son appeared in the doorway, running a hand through his thinning hair, a gesture so like his father's that it made my heart ache momentarily. "Oh, Jessica ordered a backup." Just in case. The sting of those words settled in my chest. A backup, in case my cake wasn't good enough. "I see," I said quietly. "Mom, it's not like that. It's fine," I interrupted, forcing a smile. 2 cakes are better than 1. Right, more to go around. Before William could respond, the glass sliding door to the backyard opened, and Jessica swept in. At 38, my daughter-in-law was strikingly beautiful, with honey blonde hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail and not a wrinkle in her cream linen dress. She was speaking rapidly into her cell phone. "No, I specifically requested white chairs, not these. Whatever these are. The party starts in an hour. This is completely unacceptable." She noticed me standing there and gave a quick wave before continuing her conversation. "I don't care if you have to bring them from another warehouse. This is my son's birthday party, and everything needs to be perfect." I stood awkwardly by the island, feeling suddenly out of place in my simple floral dress and sensible shoes. I'd spent hours getting ready that morning, applying makeup carefully and styling my silver hair. Now I felt dowdy and old, a feeling that often crept up on me in Jessica's presence. She ended her call with an exasperated sigh and turned to me. Margaret, you're early. I wanted to help set up, I explained, and I needed to bring the cake in carefully. Her eyes flicked to my creation and then to the bakery box. Oh, you actually made it. Of course I made it. I told William I would. Right, yes, but… She trailed off, then forced a bright smile. Well, it's very homemade. That's sweet. We can put it on the dessert table with the cupcakes and cake pops. And what about that one? I asked, nodding toward the bakery box. That's the main cake for the cutting ceremony and photos, she said matter-of-factly. It's dinosaur-themed, too. The bakery did an amazing job. Wait till you see it. It has this incredible 3D T-Rex coming out of the top. I felt my throat tighten. I thought my cake was for the cutting ceremony. That's why I made it 2 tiers. Jessica's smile didn't reach her eyes. Margaret, I appreciate the effort. I really do. But we invited Nathan's entire preschool class plus our friends and their kids. This is an important event. And my cake isn't good enough for an important event. The words slipped out before I could stop them. William stepped between us, ever the peacemaker. Mom, your cake looks amazing. We'll use both. Okay? Kids love cake. But which one will Nathan blow out the candles on? I asked, already knowing the answer. The silence that followed confirmed it. I'd spent weeks planning that cake, practicing techniques I hadn't used in years, standing despite the arthritis in my knees that made it painful to be upright for too long. And it wasn't good enough. I'm going to see if I can help with anything outside, I said, needing to escape before the tears threatening at the corners of my eyes could fall. The backyard had been transformed into a child's dream. A dinosaur-themed bounce house dominated one corner, while tables covered in prehistoric decorations filled another. A banner reading "Happy 5th Birthday, Nathan" stretched across the back fence, everything coordinated perfectly, from the napkins to the tablecloths. I found tasks to keep myself busy, arranging plates, setting out party favors, anything to feel useful. Guests would be arriving soon, and I needed to compose myself. The first to arrive were Jessica's parents, Henry and Diane Thompson. They lived in Pittsford, one of Rochester's wealthiest suburbs, and had never made much effort to hide their opinion that William had married into a better social circle. Henry was a retired surgeon, and Diane had never worked outside their home. They swept in bearing an enormous gift wrapped in custom paper. Margaret, Diane greeted me with air kisses near both cheeks. How are you? Still in that little apartment downtown? Yes, I'm still there. It suits me fine. Well, if you ever want recommendations for senior communities, I'm on the board of a lovely one near us. Very active lifestyle. I was saved from responding by the arrival of more guests. Soon the backyard was filled with the chaos of excited children and chatting adults. I stationed myself by the drinks table, pouring lemonade and making small talk, watching as Jessica expertly worked the crowd. She had a gift for making everyone feel special, while simultaneously ensuring they knew just how much effort she'd put into every detail. Nathan arrived from a playdate with a neighbor, escorted by William. My grandson's face lit up when he saw the decorations, and he ran straight for the bounce house, his little legs pumping with excitement. "Grandma!" he shouted when he spotted me, changing course to barrel into my legs with a hug. I knelt down, ignoring the protest from my knees. "Did you see the dinosaurs? There's so many dinosaurs." "I sure did, birthday boy. And I made you a special cake, too, with real dinosaurs on it, the ones we talked about." His face lit up with joy. "The ankylosaurus, too. That's my favorite. Exactly the ones we talked about. I even made an ankylosaurus just like you asked." "Can I see it?" Let's wait until cake time. Okay, it's a surprise. He nodded solemnly, then was off again, drawn by the siren call of presents and playmates. I watched him go, my heart full. Whatever tension existed between Jessica and me, Nathan was worth it all. The party progressed with military precision according to Jessica's schedule. There were dinosaur-themed games, a fossil dig in a sandbox specially installed for the occasion, and a professional face painter creating prehistoric creatures on small, eager faces. I helped where I could, but increasingly found myself pushed to the periphery as Jessica's mother took charge of the gift table and her father entertained the parents with stories of his medical career. I felt like a spectator at my own grandson's birthday, an extra rather than family. When it was finally time for cake, I followed the crowd inside. Jessica had set up the bakery creation on a special stand in the dining room. It was admittedly spectacular, a volcanic scene with realistic-looking dinosaurs, and that promised T-Rex erupting from the top. My homemade effort had been placed on a side table with the other desserts. Just as she'd said, "Everyone gather around," Jessica called. "We're going to sing to the birthday boy." Nathan was lifted onto a chair by William, his little face glowing with excitement. But then he looked around in confusion. "Where's Grandma's cake?" he asked. "The one with the ankylosaurus?" A brief silence fell over the room. Jessica's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Honey, we're using this special cake for the candles and pictures," she explained. "Grandma's cake is over there for everyone to enjoy after." Nathan's lower lip thrust out. "But I want Grandma's cake. She made the ankylosaurus for me." I saw the flicker of annoyance cross Jessica's perfect features before she smoothed it away. "Nathan, we already set everything up with this cake. We can cut Grandma's cake too, but let's blow out the candles on this one, okay?" "No," Nathan said, his voice rising with the beginnings of a tantrum. "I want Grandma's cake. She made it special for me." William looked helplessly between his son and his wife. The other parents shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. "It's okay," I said quickly, moving to retrieve my cake. "We can use both, right?" "Margaret," Jessica said through gritted teeth, "we already have this set up for the photos." "But Nathan wants—" "We can't always give Nathan exactly what he wants," she snapped. "That's called parenting." The room went silent. I felt the heat of embarrassment creep up my neck as every eye turned toward us. In that moment, I saw myself as they must see me, a meddling old woman disrupting a perfectly planned party. Nathan began to cry, and William quickly scooped him up, whispering something in his ear. Jessica turned to the guest with a practiced laugh. "Well, I think someone's getting a little overtired from all the excitement. Let's sing Happy Birthday, and then everyone can enjoy both of these wonderful cakes." The crisis was smoothed over with her social grace, but the damage was done. As everyone sang and Nathan reluctantly blew out the candles on the bakery cake, I stood in the corner, feeling utterly useless and out of place in my own family. It was during the commotion of cake cutting that I overheard Jessica speaking to her friend near the kitchen island. They didn't notice me approaching with empty plates. "It's exhausting having to manage Margaret along with everything else," Jessica sighed. "She's completely useless, always trying to insert herself where she's not needed." I froze, the plates clutched in my trembling hands. "At least she has money," her friend replied with a laugh. "True, William's working on that angle. We've got her credit card now, which helps." They moved away, leaving me standing there, humiliated and angry. The realization that my financial support was the only value I had in their eyes struck me like a physical blow. I didn't know then that this was only the beginning of a conflict that would change everything between us. The drive back to my apartment after Nathan's birthday party felt longer than the usual 20 minutes. Rochester's streets were quiet in the early evening, the late spring sun still lingering above the horizon. I gripped the steering wheel of my Buick tightly, replaying the afternoon's events in my mind. Half of my cake remained uneaten on the dessert table when I left. I hadn't stayed to take it home. What would be the point? My apartment building came into view, an older but well-maintained complex near Highland Park. I'd moved here after selling the family home 3 years ago following James's death. 47 years of marriage ended by a sudden heart attack while he was shoveling snow from our driveway. The apartment was smaller than I needed, but I'd chosen it for its proximity to William and Nathan. Back then, I thought I'd be spending most of my time with them anyway. I parked in my designated spot and sat for a moment, too drained to move. My phone buzzed with a text from William. "Sorry about today, Mom. Nathan loved your cake. He's already asking when you'll visit next." At least my grandson still wanted me around. I texted back a brief response and headed inside, nodding to Mrs. Peterson from 3B, who was checking her mail in the lobby. "Margaret, you look exhausted," she commented. "Wasn't it your grandson's birthday today?" "Yes, it was quite an event. Those big parties can be overwhelming. My daughter does the same thing, hires photographers, entertainers, the works. Whatever happened to just having cake in the backyard with a few friends?" I managed to smile. "Times change, I suppose." "They certainly do. Say, are you coming to book club on Wednesday? We're discussing that mystery novel." "I'll be there," I promised, grateful for the reminder of my own life and friends, separate from the role of grandmother that seemed increasingly relegated to the sidelines. Upstairs, I kicked off my shoes and sank into my favorite armchair, the one James and I had purchased when we were first married. It was worn in all the right places, a comfortable reminder of a life well lived. I glanced at the side table where a stack of financial documents sat waiting for my attention: bank statements, investment reports, and the monthly letter from my accountant. James had been meticulous about our finances. As a bank manager for over 30 years, he'd invested wisely and left me more than comfortable. My teacher's pension combined with his retirement savings and investments meant I had no financial worries, something I knew made me fortunate compared to many of my friends. I reached for the statements, thinking I might as well review them before bed. When my phone rang, William's name flashed on the screen. "Hello, Mom." His voice sounded strained. "I just wanted to check that you got home okay and to apologize properly for today." "I'm fine, William, and you don't need to apologize. It was a lovely party." "But the cake situation was nothing," I interrupted. "Nathan had a wonderful time, and that's what matters." He was quiet for a moment. "Jessica feels bad about what happened." "Does she?" I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. "She does. Mom, she's just particular about how she wants things. You know that." I did know that. Jessica had always been exact in her expectations, from the wedding she'd planned down to the minute to the precise shade of gray they'd painted their living room walls. 3 samples had been tested before she found the right one. "It's fine, William. Really. Actually, there was something else I wanted to talk to you about." He paused. "It's a bit awkward." I felt a tightening in my chest. "What is it?" "Well, you know that Jessica left her job at the marketing firm when Nathan started preschool." "Yes, she wanted to be more present for him. I remember." "Right. And it's been great for Nathan having her home, but we've had to adjust to living on just my income, and with the new house and all the expenses." I suddenly understood where this was heading. "William, are you having financial difficulties? You know I'd be happy to help." He exhaled audibly. "That's just it, Mom. We're not in trouble exactly, but things are tighter than we'd like. Jessica has expensive tastes, and we've gotten used to a certain lifestyle. What do you need? I asked directly. We've been thinking, since you're doing so well with Dad's investments and your pension, maybe you could help us out on a regular basis. Nothing major, just to ease the pressure a bit. I thought of Jessica's designer clothes, their luxury SUV, the lavish birthday party. What did you have in mind? Maybe you could add Jessica as an authorized user on one of your credit cards, just for emergencies and things for Nathan. The request took me by surprise. An authorized user would mean Jessica could spend freely, and I would be responsible for the payments. It seemed an oddly open-ended form of financial support. I'd need to think about that. William, maybe we could set up a monthly transfer instead, something with clear boundaries. The credit card would just be easier, he pressed. That way, if Nathan needs something urgently or there's a good opportunity for him, Jessica wouldn't have to wait to ask you for the money. I wondered whose idea this really was. Let me sleep on it. Okay, we can talk tomorrow. Of course, Mom. Take your time. He paused. And thanks for understanding about today. Jessica really does appreciate everything you do for Nathan. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my living room, thinking, James would have had strong opinions about this request. He believed in financial independence and had raised William with clear lessons about living within one's means. But James wasn't here, and I was lonely. If helping financially brought me closer to my grandson and made me more valuable to my son and daughter-in-law, perhaps it was worth considering. The next morning, I called my bank and arranged to add Jessica Thompson as an authorized user on my primary credit card, the one with the highest limit and best rewards. The customer service representative walked me through the process efficiently. The additional card will be mailed to your address within 5 to 7 business days, she explained. Would you like to set a separate credit limit for the authorized user? I hesitated. Setting a limit might send the message that I didn't trust Jessica. No, that won't be necessary. Very well, Mrs. Wilson. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, thank you. That's all. I called William immediately after. It's done. Jessica's card should arrive next week. Really? Mom? Wow, thank you. This is going to help us a lot. I'm happy to do it, I said. And in that moment, I truly was. I want to be helpful, William. I want to be part of your lives. You are, Mom. This means a lot to us. The card arrived 5 days later. I called William to let him know I would drop it off that afternoon. Their house looked different in the mundane light of a Tuesday, less intimidating without the party decorations and crowds of guests. I parked in the driveway and noticed Jessica's Audi SUV was the only car present. William must have been at work. I rang the doorbell, smoothing down my cardigan nervously. After a moment, Jessica opened the door, her expression shifting from expectancy to polite acknowledgement when she saw me. Margaret, hi, William's not home yet. I know, I came to drop this off. I held up the envelope containing her new credit card. It came today. Her face brightened immediately. Oh, the card? That's wonderful. Come in, please. The house was immaculate as always, not a toy out of place despite a 5-year-old living there. I followed Jessica to the kitchen, where she was in the midst of preparing what appeared to be a complex salad, vegetables arranged in precise rows for chopping. Would you like some tea? She offered, gesturing to an electric kettle. That would be nice, thank you. As she prepared the tea, I placed the envelope on the counter. The credit limit is quite generous. I thought it would be useful for Nathan's expenses and emergencies. As William mentioned, Jessica nodded, not looking up from the tea preparation. It will be, thank you, Margaret. This is very kind of you. There was a formality to her gratitude that felt practiced rather than genuine, but I pushed the thought aside. This was a peace offering, a way to be useful to them. "How is Nathan?" I asked. "Has he recovered from all the excitement of the party?" "He's good, at a play date right now. His friend's mother will drop him off in an hour." She set a mug of tea in front of me. "Margaret, about the party. I hope you didn't feel that I was dismissing your effort with the cake. It was very thoughtful." The apology felt rehearsed, probably prompted by William. "It's fine, Jessica. These things happen." She picked up the envelope, sliding out the credit card and examining it. "This will make things so much easier for us. William's been working so hard, and with me staying home with Nathan, it's been an adjustment." "I understand. Family comes first." She smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her that day. "Exactly. And now I can get Nathan that membership to the Children's Science Center he's been asking about. Did you know they have a whole paleontology program for kids his age? That sounds wonderful. He'd love that. And they have this amazing summer camp too, but it's quite expensive. Now we can consider it without stressing about the budget." I nodded, pleased that my contribution would directly benefit Nathan. "I'd love to hear all about it when he goes." "Of course." She tucked the card into her wallet. "We really do appreciate this. Margaret, it makes me feel more secure knowing we have this backup." We chatted for a few more minutes about Nathan's activities and William's work before I made my excuses to leave. As Jessica walked me to the door, she gave me an unexpected hug. "This means more than you know," she said. "You're helping us give Nathan the best possible childhood." Driving home, I felt lighter than I had in days. Maybe this financial arrangement would bridge the gap between us, creating a bond where there had previously been only polite tolerance. Maybe Jessica would finally see me as valuable, as someone who contributed meaningfully to their family. The first credit card statement arrived 4 weeks later. I opened it over my morning coffee, curious to see how Jessica had been using the card. The total made me blink in surprise. $6,283.47. I scanned the itemized charges. There was indeed a membership to the Rochester Children's Science Center for $250, but there was also a $200 charge from Nordstrom, $870 from a high-end furniture store, $430 at a spa in Pittsford, and numerous restaurant charges ranging from $60 to $200. Only about a quarter of the expenses seemed directly related to Nathan. The rest appeared to be Jessica's personal shopping and entertainment. I recalled William's words, "things for Nathan and emergencies," and wondered if their definition of emergency differed significantly from mine. I picked up my phone to call William, then set it down again. Confronting them about the charges might create tension just when we seemed to be developing a better relationship. The last few weeks had seen more invitations to visit, more FaceTime calls with Nathan. Just yesterday, Jessica had texted me photos of Nathan at the Science Center, his face alight with wonder as he examined fossil replicas. I could afford the charges. The amount, while substantial, wouldn't impact my financial security. Was it worth risking our fragile peace over money? I decided to pay the bill without comment and see what happened next month. Perhaps this was just an initial splurge, and the expenses would normalize over time. Or perhaps I needed to have a gentle conversation with William about expectations. Either way, I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. After all, what was money compared to family? I had plenty. And they had given me something far more valuable, a place in their lives. If this was the price of admission, I was willing to pay it. For now, summer in Rochester gave way to fall, bringing cooler temperatures and the vibrant colors of changing leaves. 3 months had passed since I'd added Jessica to my credit card, and I'd settled into a new routine with my family. I was invited for Sunday dinners twice a month, picked Nathan up from preschool every Wednesday, and occasionally joined them for outings to parks or museums. On the surface, things seemed better. Jessica was more welcoming, often texting me photos of Nathan or calling to chat about his latest achievements. William seemed relieved by the improved relationship between his mother and wife, and Nathan, sweet Nathan, was always delighted to see his grandma. But beneath this pleasant veneer, a growing unease had taken root in my mind. The credit card statements continued to show substantial charges each month: $5, $847.92, then $7, $329.15, and most recently, $8, $456.23. The expenses were increasingly difficult to justify as necessities for Nathan or emergencies: designer clothing, high-end electronics, expensive restaurants, and even a weekend spa retreat that I knew Nathan hadn't attended. I'd paid each bill without comment, torn between my desire to maintain our newfound closeness and my discomfort with what felt increasingly like exploitation. James would have put a stop to it immediately. I could almost hear his voice. "Margaret, you're being taken advantage of. This isn't helping, it's enabling." But James wasn't here, and I feared that addressing the issue would return us to the cold politeness of before, or worse. It was a crisp October afternoon when things finally came to a head. I was sitting at my kitchen table, reviewing the latest credit card statement, when my phone rang. It was William. "Mom, are you busy right now? I was hoping to stop by." Something in his tone made me wary. "Of course not. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I just wanted to talk to you about something. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I put on a pot of coffee and tidied the already neat apartment, my mind racing with possibilities. Had he seen the credit card statements? Was he coming to discuss Jessica's spending? Or was it something else entirely? The doorbell rang precisely 19 minutes later. William had always been punctual, even as a child. I opened the door to find him standing there in his work clothes, looking tired but managing a smile. "Hi, Mom. Thanks for seeing me on short notice." "Don't be silly. You never need notice to visit your mother." I ushered him in. "Coffee's ready, or I have that herbal tea you like." "Coffee would be great. Thanks." We settled in my small living room, William perching on the edge of the sofa while I took my usual armchair. He cupped the mug in both hands, staring into the dark liquid as if searching for words. "Is everything all right with Nathan?" I prompted when the silence stretched too long. "Nathan's great, getting so smart. His teacher says he's reading at almost a second-grade level already." "That's wonderful. He's always been bright." William nodded, then took a deep breath. "Mom, I wanted to talk to you about the credit card." My heart sank, but I kept my expression neutral. "What about it?" "First, I want you to know how much we appreciate your generosity. It's made a huge difference for us these past few months." "I'm glad to help, William. You know that." He shifted uncomfortably. "The thing is, Jessica and I were talking, and we realized that having the card linked to your account might make you feel, well, like you're too involved in our finances, like you're watching over our shoulders." This was not what I had expected. "I haven't said anything about the charges, William." "Exactly, and that's so respectful of you, but we thought it might be better for everyone if we had a cleaner arrangement." He leaned forward. "What if, instead of the credit card, you just transferred a fixed amount each month, or $10,000? That way, you wouldn't have to see all the individual purchases, and we'd have the freedom to use the money as needed for our family." I blinked, momentarily speechless. $10,000 a month was substantially more than Jessica had been spending on the card, and the suggestion that I was somehow invading their privacy by seeing the charges on my own credit card statement was absurd. William, I said carefully, are you asking me to give you $10,000 every month indefinitely? He winced slightly at my directness. When you put it that way, it sounds bad. It's not like that. Think of it as an investment in Nathan's future and our family's well-being. With this kind of support, Jessica could stay home with Nathan until he's in school full-time, maybe even longer. The credit card was supposed to be for Nathan's needs and emergencies, I reminded him. Not as a replacement for Jessica's income. A flash of annoyance crossed his face. Mom, everything we do is for Nathan. And honestly, the card arrangement is becoming awkward. Jessica feels like she has to justify every purchase to you. She hasn't justified anything to me. I haven't questioned a single charge. But she knows you see them all. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture reminiscent of his father. Look, this would just be cleaner. A monthly transfer, no strings attached, no itemized statements for you to worry about. I took a sip of my coffee, using the moment to gather my thoughts. I need to think about this. William, it's a significant change from what we agreed to. Disappointment flickered across his face. Of course. Take your time. He checked his watch. I should get going. I told Jessica I'd pick up Nathan from his playdate on my way home. As I walked him to the door, he turned and gave me a quick hug. Thanks for considering it, Mom, and for everything you do for us. After he left, I sat back in my armchair, feeling a heaviness settle over me. The conversation had confirmed my worst fears. What had started as a gesture of goodwill had morphed into an expectation, an entitlement, and now they wanted more with less accountability. I reached for the phone, then hesitated. Who could I talk to about this? My closest friend, Eleanor, had moved to Florida 2 years ago to be near her own grandchildren. We still spoke regularly, but she'd never been fond of Jessica and would likely tell me exactly what I already knew, that I was being used. Instead, I called my financial advisor, Martin, who had worked with James for years and had continued to manage my investments after his death. Margaret, good to hear from you. He greeted me warmly. What can I do for you today? I have a hypothetical question. Martin, if I were to give my son and his wife $10,000 every month, how would that impact my financial situation long term? There was a pause. That's $120,000 a year. Margaret, not an insignificant sum, even with your portfolio. May I ask what prompted this question? I explained the situation briefly, trying to keep my emotions out of it. Martin listened without interrupting, then sighed. Financially speaking, you could sustain that level of gifting for several years without seriously depleting your principal, especially if the markets perform well. But Margaret, I have to say, this doesn't sound like a healthy arrangement. There's no end date, no specific purpose. It's just an open-ended drain on your resources. I know, I admitted, but they're my family. Martin, what am I supposed to do? Have you considered setting up a trust for Nathan instead? You could contribute to his education fund or establish something that would benefit him directly when he's older. I already have a college fund for him. Then perhaps it's time for some boundaries. James was very clear about wanting you to be financially secure for the rest of your life. He wouldn't want you to feel pressured like this. After we hung up, I sat with my thoughts as evening fell, casting long shadows across my living room. Martin was right, of course. This wasn't what James would have wanted for me, or for William. He'd raised our son to be self-sufficient, to work hard for what he wanted. Somewhere along the way, with Jessica's influence, those values seemed to have shifted. I reviewed the latest credit card statement again, noting the charges $800 at a designer boutique, while on $200 for a weekend at a luxury spa resort, $500 at a high-end home goods store. Not a single charge for anything directly related to Nathan. I thought of how Jessica had treated me at Nathan's birthday party, the dismissive way she'd handled my carefully crafted cake. I remembered overhearing her call me useless to her friend, and now they wanted an unrestricted flow of cash with no accountability. I made my decision. I've completed part 1 of the story based on your outline. This section establishes the main characters, introduces the central conflict, and builds to the first major climax where William asks for a $10,000 monthly allowance instead of the credit card. The story follows Margaret Wilson, a 72-year-old widow who tries to maintain a relationship with her grandson Nathan while dealing with her difficult daughter-in-law Jessica. I've developed the characters according to the outline, showing Jessica's materialistic nature and William's position caught between his wife and mother. This first part ends with Margaret making her decision after consulting with her financial advisor, setting up the conflict that will escalate in part 2. Would you like me to make any adjustments to part 1 before I continue with part 2? I'll continue with part 2 of the story now. Heck on part 2, conflict and loss. The next day, I called William. My voice was steady, resolved. "I've thought about your proposal," I said when he answered. "Great. What did you decide? I'm not comfortable with a monthly transfer of that size, William, but I have another suggestion. I'd like to help with specific expenses for Nathan, his education, activities, medical needs. If you send me the details of those costs, I'll cover them directly." The silence that followed was telling. "Mom, that's not really what we had in mind. It would be so much simpler to just have a regular transfer." "I understand that, but this is what I'm comfortable with." I paused, then added, "I'll also need the credit card back. I think it's best if we discontinue that arrangement." "What?" His voice rose in surprise. "Mom, we've been counting on that. Jessica has already planned Nathan's activities for the next few months, assuming we'd have that resource. I'm still happy to pay for Nathan's activities. William, just send me the information, and I'll take care of it." This is, I don't understand where this is coming from. Everything was working fine. Was it, William? The card was meant for emergencies and necessities for Nathan. The charges have gone well beyond that. So you have been judging us. His tone hardened. I knew it. Jessica said you were probably scrutinizing every purchase and thinking the worst of her. That's not true. I'm just trying to establish some reasonable boundaries. Boundaries. He sounded incredulous. Mom, we're family. This isn't some business transaction. We've been getting closer these past few months. Nathan loves seeing you more often. Do you want to jeopardize that? The implied threat wasn't subtle. My stomach clenched. Are you saying that my relationship with Nathan is contingent on my financial support? Of course not, he backpedaled quickly. I'm just saying things have been good. Why change what's working? Because it's not working for me. William, I want to be part of your lives because you want me there, not because of what I can provide financially. He was quiet for a moment. I need to talk to Jessica about this. She's not going to be happy. I understand. Let me know when you'd like to discuss Nathan's expenses. I'm still committed to helping with those. After we hung up, I felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. I'd finally stood my ground, but at what cost? Would this be the end of the closer relationship I'd been enjoying with my grandson and son? The answer came sooner than I expected. That evening, my doorbell rang just after 7:00. When I opened it, I found Jessica standing there, her expression tight with barely contained anger. "We need to talk," she said, brushing past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door slowly, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. Whatever happened next would determine the future of my relationship with my family, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. Jessica paced my small living room like a caged animal, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. Her appearance was as polished as ever, a cream cashmere sweater, dark tailored pants, and a designer handbag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But her perfectly made-up face couldn't hide the fury in her eyes. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she demanded, whirling to face me. We had arrangements in place, commitments based on the understanding that we had access to that card. I remained standing, unwilling to sink into my armchair and give her the psychological advantage of looming over me. I was clear from the beginning about what the card was for. Jessica, Nathan's needs and emergencies. She let out a sharp laugh. And that's exactly what it's been used for. A weekend at the Mirbeau Spa was for Nathan. I couldn't help but ask. Her eyes narrowed. My mental health directly impacts my ability to be a good mother to Nathan. Self-care is part of responsible parenting. It was such a practiced response, delivered with such conviction, that I almost questioned my own judgment for a moment. Almost. And the designer clothing, the expensive restaurants when Nathan wasn't even present. I represent this family in the community. Margaret, the school events, the neighborhood functions, these are all for Nathan's benefit. Do you think those Pittsford mothers would arrange playdates with their children if I showed up looking like... She stopped abruptly, but her gaze flicked dismissively over my simple slacks and cardigan. The implication hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud. If she showed up looking like me, unfashionable, old, irrelevant. "I see," I said quietly. "And the $10,000 a month William asked for, that would also be for Nathan's benefit." "Of course it would. Everything we do is for our son. We're trying to give him the best possible life, the kind of advantages that will set him up for success." She crossed her arms. "I didn't expect you of all people to be so selfish." "Selfish?" The accusation stung. "Yes, selfish. You're sitting on all that money James left you, money that you'll never spend in your lifetime. Meanwhile, your only grandchild could be benefiting from it now, when it matters for his development, but you'd rather hoard it all away." I took a steadying breath. I've already established a substantial college fund for Nathan. I've offered to pay directly for his activities and needs. That's hardly hoarding. But you need to control everything, don't you? To know every detail, to have us come begging for each expense. She shook her head in disgust. "Do you know how humiliating that is, to have to ask my mother-in-law for permission to provide for my child? That's not what I'm asking for, Jessica. Isn't it? You want itemized lists, receipts, justifications, like we're applying for a grant from the Margaret Wilson Foundation." She paced again, her movements sharp and agitated. "We're family, or at least I thought we were." The emotional manipulation was so transparent that I might have laughed if the situation weren't so painful. Family doesn't take advantage of each other. Jessica. She stopped pacing and stared at me, her expression shifting from anger to something colder. "Is that what you think we're doing? Taking advantage of you?" "The evidence suggests that, yes. The evidence," she laughed bitterly. "You sound like you're building a case against us. Is that how you see your relationship with your son? As some kind of transaction where you need to protect yourself? That's not fair, and you know it. What I know is that we've bent over backwards to include you in our lives these past few months. Do you think it's easy for me? Having my mother-in-law scrutinizing my parenting, my housekeeping, my entire life, but I did it for William, for Nathan, and yes, for you too, because I know how lonely you've been since James died." The mention of my late husband's name in this context felt like a violation. Don't bring James into this. Why not? He's the elephant in the room. Isn't he the perfect husband, the perfect father, the financial genius who left you set for life? Do you think he'd approve of how you're treating us right now? James believed in hard work and living within your means, I said firmly. He would be appalled by what you're asking of me. Jessica's expression hardened. You have no idea what I'm asking of you because you've never bothered to really know me. You've judged me from day one, decided I wasn't good enough for your precious son. That's not true. I've tried. No, you haven't. She cut me off. You've tolerated me at best. Even at our wedding, you made that comment about William marrying up socially, as if I was some gold digger who trapped your son for his middling accountant's salary. I remembered the comment she was referring to, a clumsy attempt at humor during my toast that had fallen flat. I'd regretted it immediately, but I had no idea she'd carried that resentment for all these years. I'm sorry if I hurt you with that comment. Jessica, it was thoughtless. It was revealing, she countered. And nothing has changed. You still see me as someone trying to take advantage of your family instead of as a member of it. There was a kernel of truth in her words that made me uncomfortable. Had I been prejudiced against her from the beginning? Had I contributed to the tension between us over the years? But then I remembered the credit card statements, the escalating demands, the implied threat that my access to Nathan depended on my financial generosity. No, this wasn't about old misunderstandings or personality clashes. This was about boundaries being crossed. I want to have a good relationship with you and William, I said carefully. But it has to be based on mutual respect, not financial dependence. Respect. She picked up her handbag from where she'd set it on my coffee table. Like the respect you showed when you decided unilaterally to cancel the card without even discussing it with us first. When you undermined arrangements we'd already made for Nathan based on that resource. I offered an alternative that puts you in complete control, that requires us to come to you hat in hand for every expense. She shook her head. That's not respect. Margaret, that's a power play. And what would you call demanding $10,000 a month with no accountability? I'd call it trust, family trust. She moved toward the door. But clearly, that's something you're incapable of. I followed her. Jessica, please, let's not leave it like this. There must be a middle ground we can find. She turned, her hand on the doorknob. You know what's ironic? For all your talk about Nathan's best interest, you're the one who's going to hurt him the most. He loves his grandma. He asks about you all the time. How am I supposed to explain to a 5-year-old that his grandmother has decided to pull back from our lives? I'm not pulling back from Nathan's life. I want to be involved more than anything. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you just blew up the arrangement that was making that possible. Her voice took on a clinical coldness that was more frightening than her earlier anger. You have a choice to make. Margaret, you can trust us to use your financial support in the best way for our family, without strings and supervision. Or you can return to seeing Nathan on holidays and special occasions like before. The threat was explicit now. You're using my grandson as leverage. I'm being realistic about the consequences of your actions. If you don't trust us, if you insist on treating us like children who need monitoring, then our relationship can't continue as it has been. It's that simple. She opened the door. Talk to William once you've made your decision. He's devastated by this. You know, he thought you were finally accepting me as part of the family. With that parting shot, she was gone, leaving behind only the lingering scent of her expensive perfume and the devastating weight of her ultimatum. I sank into my armchair, emotionally drained. The confrontation had been every bit as awful as I'd feared, but in ways I hadn't anticipated. Jessica's accusations had struck uncomfortably close to home in places, making me question my own motivations and biases. Had I really never given her a fair chance? Was I using financial control as a substitute for the influence I'd lost when William married? But then there were the facts: the extravagant spending, the ever-increasing demands, the explicit threat to restrict access to my grandson if I didn't comply with their financial expectations. That wasn't about old misunderstandings or personality conflicts. That was manipulation, pure and simple. My phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. William's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, not ready to face another confrontation so soon. A minute later, a text message appeared. "Mom, please call me. We need to talk about this." I turned off my phone and walked to the window, looking out at the autumn evening settling over Rochester. The maple tree outside my building was at the peak of its color change, its leaves a brilliant crimson in the fading light. Soon those leaves would fall, and winter would come. The seasons changed, predictable in their cycle, but some changes, once made, couldn't be undone. Whatever I decided now would alter my relationship with my son and grandson permanently. If I stood my ground, I risked losing the precious time with Nathan that had become the highlight of my weeks. If I gave in, I would be establishing a precedent of emotional and financial manipulation that would shape our family dynamics for years to come. James would have known what to do. He'd always been better at handling difficult conversations, at finding the balance between kindness and firmness. But James wasn't here. This decision was mine alone to make. I turned back to my silent phone, knowing that sooner or later I would have to answer William's call. But first, I needed to be absolutely clear about where my boundaries lay and what I was willing to sacrifice to maintain them. Because one thing was certain: whatever choice I made, there would be a price to pay. As I sat there in the growing darkness, a memory surfaced, something Jessica had said in passing during our heated exchange. She'd mentioned her background in a way I hadn't heard before, implying she'd grown up with financial insecurity. It struck me that in all the years she'd been married to William, I knew very little about her life before him. Curious, I turned my phone back on and did something I'd never done before. I searched for Jessica Thompson on the internet. What I found surprised me. There was an article from 7 years ago in the business section of the Rochester Chronicle. Local financial advisor resigns amid allegations of mishandling client funds. The photo showed a younger Jessica, looking polished but strained. According to the article, she had left her position at Eastview Financial Partners after questions arose about discrepancies in several client accounts. No charges had been filed, but the firm had issued a statement distancing themselves from her actions. I scrolled further and found a profile from her college alumni magazine, where she'd mentioned growing up in challenging circumstances with a father who struggled with addiction. So, that part, at least, had been true. This new information cast our situation in a different light. Jessica's obsession with financial security, her expensive tastes, her aggressive reaction to my boundary setting, all could be rooted in a past marked by insecurity and possibly shame. It didn't excuse her behavior, but it helped me understand it better. I was still processing this when my phone rang again. William. This time, I answered. "Mom, finally, I've been so worried. I'm sorry for not calling sooner. I needed time to think. Jessica told me about your conversation. Mom, she was upset. She probably didn't express herself well." I think she expressed herself perfectly clearly. "William," he sighed. "Look, we got off on the wrong foot with this whole thing. Why don't you come over for dinner tonight? We can talk it through calmly, all three of us." "I don't think that's a good idea. I'd prefer to have this conversation with just you." "Mom, I've made my decision." My voice was steady, resolved. I've canceled the credit card and will be getting a new one without Jessica as an authorized user. The silence that followed was heavy. When he spoke again, his voice had hardened. So, that's it? You didn't even want to discuss it with me first. What's there to discuss? The card was being misused, and when I tried to establish reasonable boundaries, I was essentially told that my relationship with my grandson was contingent on my financial support. That's not what Jessica meant. It's exactly what she meant. William, she made it very clear that if I didn't provide the money without strings attached, as she put it, I would be back to seeing Nathan only on holidays and special occasions. He didn't deny it, which told me everything I needed to know. Mom, try to see it from our perspective. We've built a life based on certain expectations. Nathan has activities, opportunities we've planned for him. We need stability, and I need to not be exploited by my own family. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I couldn't take them back. Exploited? He sounded genuinely shocked. Is that how you see our relationship, as exploitation? What would you call spending thousands of dollars on personal luxuries using my credit card, then demanding even more money when I question it? I'd call it family helping family, which is what I thought we were. Family doesn't use a child as emotional leverage. William, family doesn't threaten to withhold love if financial demands aren't met. He was quiet for a moment. What do you want from us, Mom? Just tell me. I want a relationship that isn't based on money. I want to be valued for who I am, not what I can provide. I took a deep breath. I've set up a custodial account for Nathan. I'll be contributing to it regularly, but the funds will only be available to him when he's 18, for college or whatever path he chooses. So you're still willing to give money, just not in a way that helps us now. The bitterness in his voice was palpable. I'm willing to support Nathan's future and his specific needs. I've told you I'll pay directly for his activities, his education expenses, his medical needs, anything that's genuinely for him. But you don't trust us to make those decisions. You need to control everything. It was the same accusation Jessica had made. It's not about control, William. It's about boundaries. Well, your boundaries are going to cost you your relationship with your grandson. Is that worth it to you? The threat coming from my son this time hurt even more than when Jessica had made it. Are you really willing to keep Nathan from seeing me because I won't give you unrestricted access to my money? That's not. He stopped, then tried again. It's not that simple. It is that simple. Either my relationship with Nathan is conditional on my financial support, or it isn't. Mom, please, let's not do this over the phone. Come over tonight. Meet with us. We can work something out. I'm not coming over. William, I need you to hear me clearly. I will not be giving you and Jessica monthly allowances or unlimited access to my credit card. I will support Nathan directly in ways that benefit him. That's my final decision. Then I don't know what to tell you. His voice had gone cold. Jessica's not going to accept this. She already feels like you've never respected her, never welcomed her into the family. This is just confirmation in her mind. That's between Jessica and me? No, Mom, it's not. It's between all of us. We're a package deal. Me, Jessica, and Nathan. You don't get to cherry pick which family members you want to deal with. The unfairness of this statement took my breath away. I've never tried to exclude Jessica. I've made countless efforts over the years to build a relationship with her. Well, from her perspective, those efforts have always come with judgment attached. I thought of the birthday party, the cake incident, all the small slights and tensions over the years. Maybe there was some truth to that, but it didn't justify what they were doing now. I'm sorry if that's how she feels, but my decision stands. He sighed heavily. Then I guess we have nothing more to talk about. I'll let you know about Nathan's next school event. But beyond that, I think we all need some space. The euphemism wasn't lost on me. Space. What he really meant was separation, distance, a pulling away of my grandson from my life. I love you, William, and I love Nathan more than you can imagine. I hope you'll reconsider using him as a pawn in this situation. That's not what— He stopped. I have to go. Goodbye, Mom. The line went dead. I sat with the phone in my hand, feeling a strange mixture of devastation and relief. The worst had happened. They were going to restrict my access to Nathan, but I had stood my ground, maintained my dignity, refused to be manipulated or exploited. Was it worth it? I didn't know. Only time would tell. I placed the phone on the table and walked to my small desk, where I kept a photo album of Nathan from birth to his recent birthday. I turned the pages slowly, watching him grow from a red-faced newborn to a gap-toothed 5-year-old with curious eyes and his father's smile. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I whispered to his image. "Grandma had to make a hard choice. I hope someday you'll understand." Outside, the autumn wind picked up, sending a swirl of crimson maple leaves past my window. Change was coming, whether I was ready for it or not. November in Rochester brought early snow, dusting the city in white and turning Highland Park into a winter wonderland. 3 weeks had passed since my confrontation with William. 3 weeks of silence broken only by a terse text message informing me that Nathan's school Thanksgiving pageant was canceled due to a flu outbreak. No invitation to Thanksgiving dinner had followed. I assumed they would be spending it with Jessica's parents in their Pittsford home, as they had the previous year. I made plans with my book club friends, a potluck at Eleanor's sister's house in Iron Decoit. It wouldn't be the family Thanksgiving I longed for, but it was better than sitting alone in my apartment with a frozen dinner and memories. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I was putting the finishing touches on the sweet potato casserole I'd promised to bring when my phone rang. I expected it to be Margaret from book club confirming the time for tomorrow. Instead, Nathan's name flashed on the screen. Nathan didn't have his own phone. Of course. This was the iPad that William and Jessica had set up with limited contacts for emergencies or supervised calls to grandparents. My heart raced as I answered. "Hello, Nathan." "Grandma." His high-pitched voice sent a wave of emotion through me, so powerful I had to grip the counter for support. "Guess what? I lost my tooth. The one that was wiggly when I showed you last time. Our Wednesday afternoon together nearly a month ago, before everything fell apart. My last time seeing him." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Did the tooth fairy come?" "Uh-huh. She brought me $5. Daddy said that's because it was my first tooth. The next ones might be only $1. "Well, that's very generous of the tooth fairy." I tried to keep my voice light, even as questions tumbled through my mind. Did William and Jessica know he was calling me? Were they listening in? "Are you excited for Thanksgiving tomorrow?" "Yeah, Daddy's frying a turkey in the backyard." "He got a special fryer thing, and I'm helping Mommy make pumpkin pie later." So they weren't going to Jessica's parents after all. The knowledge sent a fresh stab of pain through me. They were having a family Thanksgiving at home, and I wasn't invited. "That sounds delicious. I'm sure you'll be a great helper. Mommy says I'm the best at stirring." There was a pause. Then his voice dropped to a stage whisper. "Grandma, are you mad at us? Daddy said you need space right now, but I don't know what that means." My throat tightened. "No, sweetheart, I'm not mad at you. Not at all. I miss you very much." "I miss you too. When are you coming over again? You haven't picked me up from school in forever." How could I explain this to a 5-year-old that his parents were using him as leverage in a financial dispute, that his grandmother had chosen principle over access to him? I'm not sure, Nathan. Your dad and I are working some things out. But I want you to know that I love you very, very much. Nothing will ever change that. Okay? Okay? He sounded uncertain. Can I show you something? I'll turn on the video. Before I could respond, the call switched to FaceTime. Nathan's face appeared, gap-toothed smile and all, his dark hair tousled as if he'd been playing. He was in his bedroom. I recognized the dinosaur wallpaper behind him. See my tooth? He pointed to the empty space in his lower jaw. It came out when I was eating an apple. I see it. What a big moment. You're growing up so fast. He nodded solemnly. I'm practically a grown-up now. That's what Daddy says. Well, not quite yet, I smiled. You've still got plenty of time to be a kid. Grandma, for Christmas, can I get Nathan? Jessica's voice came from somewhere off screen. Who are you talking to? His eyes widened slightly. It's Grandma. I'm showing her my tooth. There was a moment of silence. Then footsteps approached. Jessica's face appeared in the frame, her expression carefully neutral. Nathan, you know you're supposed to ask before making calls. But it's just Grandma. His voice held confusion. Even so, we have rules about the iPad. She looked directly at the camera now, acknowledging me for the first time. Margaret, I didn't realize Nathan was calling you. He was just showing me his tooth. It's fine. Nathan, go help Daddy bring in the groceries from the car. I need to talk to Grandma for a minute. But, now, please. He sighed dramatically, but complied. Bye. Grandma, I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. I called as he disappeared from view. Once he was gone, Jessica's expression hardened. I'd appreciate it if you didn't encourage him to call without permission. I didn't encourage anything. Jessica, he called me. Well, he shouldn't have. We've been trying to give him space from this situation. Space? He's 5 years old. He has no idea there is a situation. He just misses his grandmother. She sighed, running a hand through her perfect hair. Look, Margaret, I know you think I'm the villain here, the gold digger who's keeping your grandson from you, but this isn't simple. Then explain it to me. Explain how it's okay to use a child as leverage in a financial dispute. That's not, she stopped, glancing over her shoulder to ensure Nathan wasn't within earshot. That's not what's happening. William is deeply hurt by your lack of trust in us. He feels like you've never fully accepted me as part of the family, and this financial issue just confirmed it for him. So this is punishment keeping Nathan from me because William's feelings are hurt. It's not punishment, it's protection. William doesn't want Nathan exposed to the tension right now. There wouldn't be tension if I were allowed to see my grandson. She shook her head. You still don't get it. This isn't just about money. It's about respect, about being treated like capable adults rather than irresponsible children who need supervision. Respect goes both ways. Jessica, I didn't feel very respected when you demanded $10,000 a month with no accountability. A flash of something, guilt, annoyance, crossed her face. Perhaps that was excessive, but the principle remains. Either you trust us to make decisions for our family, or you don't. I was tired of going in circles. What does this mean for Thanksgiving? For Christmas, am I expected to just miss all these moments in Nathan's life because we have a disagreement? She hesitated. William hasn't decided about Christmas yet. As for Thanksgiving, we've already made plans. Without me went the unspoken end of that sentence. I see. I kept my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. Will you at least allow me to give Nathan a Christmas gift? Of course. You can drop it off or mail it. Her tone suggested she was being incredibly generous with this concession. A commotion in the background caught her attention, the sound of William and Nathan returning with groceries. I have to go. Please don't call Nathan directly. If you want to speak with him, contact William or me first. Jessica, wait. But she had already ended the call. I set the phone down on the counter, my hands shaking. The brief connection with Nathan had been both a blessing and a curse. Wonderful to see his face, hear his voice, know that he still loved and missed me. But the casual cruelty of Jessica's dismissal, the reality that I was now required to request permission to speak to my own grandson, was almost too much to bear. The sweet potato casserole sat forgotten on the counter, cooling as tears slid down my cheeks. For the first time since this ordeal began, I questioned my decision. Was standing on principle worth this pain, worth missing Thanksgiving, possibly Christmas, worth losing these precious years of Nathan's childhood that I could never get back? I picked up my phone, my finger hovering over William's contact information. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe I could swallow my pride, agree to their terms, find some way to compromise that would allow me back into their lives. But then I remembered Jessica's cold eyes when she delivered her ultimatum, the way William had so easily threatened to keep Nathan from me if I didn't comply with their financial demands. If I gave in now, what would the next demand be? Where would it end? I put the phone down without making the call. Instead, I covered the casserole and placed it in the refrigerator. Tomorrow would be Thanksgiving, my first without family in decades. I would put on a brave face for my friends, share stories and laughter, and pretend that my heart wasn't breaking. That evening, I sat at my desk and wrote a letter to Nathan, explaining in simple terms how much I loved him, how none of the grown-up problems were his fault, and how I would always be his grandma no matter what. I didn't know if he would ever read it, if William and Jessica would give it to him, but I needed to write it nonetheless. As I sealed the envelope, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. I opened it cautiously. Margaret, this is Henry Thompson, Jessica's father. I believe we need to talk. Can you meet me tomorrow morning at 9 Hydro at Highland Park Diner? It's about William and Jessica, and I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. I stared at the message in disbelief. Jessica's father, the retired surgeon who had always treated me with cordial indifference at best. What could he possibly want to discuss with me, especially on Thanksgiving morning? Despite my misgivings, I found myself typing a response. I'll be there. Whatever Henry Thompson wanted to tell me, it had to be significant for him to reach out like this. For better or worse, I was about to add another layer of complexity to an already painful situation. The Highland Park Diner was nearly empty on Thanksgiving morning. I spotted Henry Thompson immediately, sitting in a corner booth, impeccably dressed as always. His silver hair was perfectly combed, his expression serious as he sipped black coffee. "Thank you for coming, Margaret," he said as I slid into the booth. "I'll get straight to the point. I know about the credit card situation." I blinked in surprise. "Jessica told you." "No, I discovered it when I was helping them refinance their mortgage last month." "Refinance their mortgage? Are they in financial trouble?" Henry's expression was grim. "They're drowning in debt. Margaret, massive credit card balances, personal loans, a second mortgage they didn't tell you about." "I had no idea it was that bad." Henry nodded. "Jessica has always lived beyond her means. When she married William, I hoped he would be a stabilizing influence. Instead, she's dragged him into her financial chaos." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because they're using you, and it's wrong." His directness surprised me. "Diane and I have bailed them out twice already. We refused a third time, which is when they turned to you." I sat back, processing this information. "Have you spoken to them about this? Tried to help them change their spending habits?" "They don't listen." He leaned forward. "Here's my proposition. I've arranged for a financial counselor, someone who specializes in families with spending problems. If they agree to work with her, Diane and I will help with their immediate debts. But they need consequences this time. What do you need from me? Stand your ground. Don't give them unrestricted access to your money. And if they cut me off from Nathan? The fear that had been haunting me for weeks. Henry slid a business card across the table. My attorney. I'll back you in seeking grandparent visitation rights if it comes to that. My hand trembled as I took the card. You do that, support me against your own daughter. Nathan deserves his grandmother, and they need to learn that emotional blackmail is unacceptable. I studied Henry's face, looking for an ulterior motive. I don't understand. Why now? You've never seemed particularly concerned about my relationship with Nathan before. Henry sighed, suddenly looking older. I made mistakes with Jessica. Her mother and I both did. We gave her everything she wanted, never set proper boundaries. When she got into trouble at that financial firm, he looked surprised. You didn't know before she met William. Jessica worked at Eastview Financial. She was asked to resign after some irregularities were discovered in client accounts. I found an article about that online, I admitted. But I didn't know the details. Nothing was ever proven conclusively, but there was enough concern that the firm paid settlements to several clients. We covered Jessica's legal expenses, helped her find a new job in marketing. He shook his head. We thought she'd learned her lesson. Obviously not. She told me she grew up with a father who had addiction issues, I said cautiously, that they struggled financially. Henry's laugh was bitter. Is that what she told you I'm a surgeon? Margaret, I've never had an addiction. And Jessica grew up in Pittsford with every advantage. That's her pattern, creating sympathy to manipulate people. I felt a chill. Had I been completely wrong about Jessica's motivations? What about William? Does he know about her past? Some of it, not everything. He's been willfully blind about a lot of things where Jessica is concerned. The waitress approached, and we paused our conversation to order. Just coffee for me. I couldn't imagine eating. When she left, I asked the question that had been bothering me. Why didn't you tell me any of this years ago? Henry looked genuinely regretful. Diane and I hoped it would work out. William seemed good for Jessica, steady, responsible. We thought maybe... He trailed off. You thought maybe he would fix her. I finished. Something like that. Clearly, we were wrong. He checked his watch. I need to get back. Diane's expecting me to help with the turkey. What happens now? I'm going to call William this afternoon, tell him what I know and what I'm offering, the financial counseling, help with their debts, but with conditions this time. He met my eyes. One of those conditions will be that they restore your access to Nathan, unconditionally. He'll be angry that you spoke to me. Probably, but it's time for some hard truths in our family, don't you think, as Henry paid the bill and we prepared to leave. He paused. There's one more thing you should know. Jessica's pregnant again, about 2 months along. They haven't announced it yet. The news hit me like a physical blow. Another grandchild I might never know. All the more reason to fix this situation now, Henry said. Seeing my expression, I'll be in touch after I speak with them. I walked back to my car in a daze, my mind reeling from everything I'd learned. Jessica wasn't who I thought she was. Their financial situation was far worse than I'd imagined. And there was another baby coming. I sat in my car, watching as light snow began to fall, covering the diner's parking lot in a delicate white blanket. The conversation with Henry had changed everything and nothing. I still faced the same painful choice, stand firm on my principles or give in to see my grandson. But now I had allies I never expected, and information that cast the entire situation in a new light. 3 days later, William called. His voice was subdued. Dad says you two talked. We did. Mom, me. I'm sorry things got out of hand. He sounded genuinely chastened. Jessica and I have agreed to see that financial counselor. Relief washed over me. I'm glad to hear that. And we want you to come for Christmas. No strings attached. I'd like that very much. There's one more thing. He paused. Nathan's been asking about you. Would you be able to take him to the dinosaur exhibit this weekend? Just the two of you. Of course, I said, tears welling in my eyes. I'd love nothing more. As I hung up, I knew our problems weren't magically solved. There would be difficult conversations ahead, trust to rebuild, boundaries to maintain. But for now, knowing I would see my grandson again was enough. Sometimes love means standing firm, even when it breaks your heart, and sometimes, unexpectedly, that's exactly what a family needs to heal. I'll continue with part 3 to complete the story. Daeseon. Name part is Resolution and Reconciliation. The Museum of Science and Innovation in downtown Rochester was bustling with weekend visitors, but I hardly noticed the crowds. All my attention was focused on Nathan, whose small hand gripped mine tightly as he pulled me toward the dinosaur exhibit. Come on, Grandma. They have a real T-Rex skeleton. His excitement was contagious, his earlier confusion about our separation seemingly forgotten in the joy of our reunion. I'm coming, sweetheart. These old knees don't move as fast as your young ones, he giggled, slowing his pace slightly in consideration. My heart swelled with love for this thoughtful child. The dinosaur exhibition was spectacular, a special traveling display featuring fossils, interactive learning stations, and remarkably lifelike animatronic recreations that moved and roared. Nathan was in heaven, his face alight with wonder as he darted from exhibit to exhibit, calling me over to share each discovery. Grandma, look, it's an ankylosaurus, just like on my cake. I knelt beside him, admiring the armored dinosaur. You remember that, do you? Of course, it was the best cake ever. He lowered his voice. Better than the store one. I smiled, touched by his loyalty. Well, maybe for your next birthday. I can make you another special cake. What do you think? Yes. He bounced on his toes. Can it have a stegosaurus this time, and a triceratops, and maybe a volcano that erupts? I'll see what I can do. I laughed, though I'm not sure about the erupting volcano part. We spent 3 wonderful hours exploring the exhibit. Nathan absorbed information like a sponge, reading placards aloud and asking insightful questions that impressed even the museum staff. As we sat in the museum cafe afterward, sharing a hot chocolate and a cookie, I carefully broached the subject of home. So, how are things with your mom and dad? I hear you're going to have a baby brother or sister. His eyes widened. Really? They didn't tell me that. I mentally kicked myself. Henry had said they hadn't announced it yet, and here I was, spilling their secret. Well, I might be mistaken. You should ask them about it. Nathan shrugged, already moving on. Daddy's been working a lot, and Mommy cries sometimes when she thinks I'm not looking. This revelation concerned me. She cries, "Do you know why?" I heard them fighting about money. Daddy said they had to cut back, but Mommy said it wasn't fair. He frowned, trying to make sense of adult problems beyond his understanding. And then they talk about you, but they stop when they see me. I see. I kept my tone neutral, not wanting to put Nathan in the middle. You know, grown-ups sometimes have disagreements, but that doesn't mean they don't love each other. Or you. I know. He dunked his cookie in the hot chocolate. Are you and Daddy having a disagreement? Is that why you needed space? Something like that. But we're working on it. I squeezed his hand. The important thing is that I love you very much, and that will never change, no matter what. He nodded solemnly. I love you too. Grandma, when we arrived back at William and Jessica's house, I was surprised to find Henry's car in the driveway alongside William's. Jessica's Audi was conspicuously absent. Looks like your grandpa is visiting, I told Nathan as we pulled up. Grandpa Henry, Nathan exclaimed. Maybe he brought me a present. He usually does. I hadn't expected to see Henry today, and I certainly wasn't prepared for a confrontation with the entire family, but there was no avoiding it now. William opened the door before we reached it, his expression strained, but managing a smile for his son. Hey, buddy, did you have fun at the museum? It was awesome. Dad, they had real dinosaur bones and robots that moved and roared. And Grandma said I might get a baby brother or sister. Is that true? William's eyes darted to mine, a mix of surprise and accusation. We were going to talk about that as a family. Nathan, why don't you go say hi to Grandpa Henry in the living room while I chat with Grandma for a minute? Nathan ran off, leaving William and me in the entryway. I'm so sorry, I said immediately. Henry mentioned it, and I accidentally let it slip. I thought Nathan knew. William sighed. It's fine. We were planning to tell him this weekend anyway. He lowered his voice. Dad's here because Jessica's having a difficult day. The pregnancy hormones aren't helping. What do you mean by difficult? She had her first session with the financial counselor yesterday. It didn't go well. He ran a hand through his hair. Mom, there's a lot you don't know about Jessica, about our situation. I think I know more than you realize, I said gently. Henry filled me in on some of it. William's expression hardened slightly. Did he now? Well, I'm sure he gave you his version of events. Why don't you give me yours? He glanced toward the living room, then gestured to the kitchen. Let's talk in here. The kitchen was immaculate as always, though I noticed fewer of the high-end gadgets that had previously cluttered the countertops. William indicated for me to sit at the island while he leaned against the sink, arms crossed defensively. Jessica didn't have an easy childhood, he began. Her parents paint a rosy picture now, but they were different people back then. Henry was hardly ever home, too busy building his surgical practice. And when he was home, he had impossible standards that Jessica could never meet. She told me her father had addiction issues, I said cautiously. William's laugh was bitter. He was a workaholic who self-medicated with bourbon every night. Never officially an alcoholic, but definitely absent and emotionally unavailable. Jessica learned early that the only way to get his attention was through achievements or by being the perfect daughter, and the only way to get her mother's approval was to fit into their social circle flawlessly. And the financial firm, the allegations, he tensed. She told you about that. Henry did. William's jaw clenched. Of course he did. He loves bringing up Jessica's mistakes. He sighed. Yes, there were discrepancies in some accounts Jessica managed. She was trying to cover investment losses, moving money between accounts temporarily to make the numbers look better. She planned to fix it, but got caught before she could. That's serious. William? I know, but she was young, under enormous pressure. Her father had connections at the firm. That's how she got the job. She was terrified of disappointing him. He looked me in the eye. She made a mistake. Mom, a big one. But she's paid for it. That incident destroyed her financial career. She had to start over in marketing. I absorbed this information, trying to reconcile it with what Henry had told me. Both versions could be true. Jessica might have had legitimate struggles growing up with emotionally distant parents, while also developing problematic patterns around money and honesty. And your current financial situation? I asked. William's shoulders slumped. It's bad, worse than I let on. We've been living beyond our means for years. The house is underwater. We owe more than it's worth. We have credit card debt across 6 different cards. And I've been pulling money from my 401k to keep up with the payments. Oh, William, I breathed, dismayed by the extent of their troubles. Why didn't you tell me how serious it was? Pride, shame, I don't know. He looked defeated. Jessica keeps saying things will get better when I make partner at the firm, but that's at least 2 years away. And now with the new baby coming. Where is Jessica now? She went for a drive to clear her head. The financial counselor wants us to sell the house, move to something smaller. Jessica says it would destroy our social standing, hurt Nathan's future. He laughed hollowly, as if a 5-year-old cares what neighborhood he lives in. The sound of footsteps interrupted us. Henry appeared in the doorway, his expression grave. William, Nathan's asking for a snack, and Jessica just called. She's on her way back. William straightened. I'll get him something. He left the kitchen, brushing past his father-in-law without making eye contact. Henry turned to me. I thought you were just dropping Nathan off. I was. I wasn't expecting a family summit. Neither was I, but perhaps it's for the best. Everything needs to come out in the open. Before I could respond, we heard the front door open and close. A moment later, Jessica appeared in the kitchen doorway. She looked tired, her usual perfect appearance slightly disheveled, eyes red-rimmed from crying. She froze when she saw me. Margaret, I didn't realize you'd still be here. I was just leaving, I said, rising from the stool. No, stay. Her voice was flat. We might as well get everything out in the open. Isn't that why you're here, Dad, to orchestrate your grand intervention? Henry remained calm. No one's orchestrating anything, Jessica, but we do need to talk as a family. As a family, she repeated sarcastically. Is that what we are? Because lately it feels like I'm on trial, with everyone else serving as judge and jury. William returned with Nathan. Hey, buddy, why don't you go watch that dinosaur documentary in your room while the grown-ups talk? But I want to stay with Grandma, Nathan protested. Grandma will still be here when you're done, William promised, though he glanced at me uncertainly. It's okay, sweetheart, I assured him. We'll have more dinosaur adventures soon. Once Nathan was upstairs, the four of us gathered awkwardly around the kitchen island. Jessica remained standing, arms crossed defensively. So, she said, is this where you all tell me what a terrible person I am, how I've ruined William financially and turned him against his mother? No one thinks you're a terrible person, I said gently. Jessica laughed bitterly. Please, I've seen how you look at me. Margaret, you've never thought I was good enough for your precious son. That's not true. Isn't it from day one? You've judged me, my clothes, my tastes, how I parent Nathan. If I've made you feel that way, I'm truly sorry, I said sincerely. But Jessica, this isn't about whether I approve of your lifestyle choices. It's about the fact that you and William are drowning in debt, and you tried to use my relationship with my grandson as leverage to get more money from me. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. That's not what happened. It is exactly what happened, Henry interjected. You told Margaret she could either give you unrestricted financial support or be cut off from Nathan. That's emotional blackmail. Jessica, stay out of this, Dad, she snapped. You've done enough damage. William stepped forward. Jess, we need to be honest here. We did use Nathan as leverage. We thought we could pressure Mom into giving us money without questions. It was wrong. Jessica stared at him, betrayal written across her face. So you're taking their side now. This isn't about sides. It's about facing reality. William took a deep breath. We can't keep living like this. The credit card debt, the second mortgage, the constant financial juggling, it's killing us. I'm stressed all the time. You're unhappy. And now we're bringing another child into this mess. Tears welled in Jessica's eyes. I just wanted us to have a good life, to give Nathan everything, to be respected in the community. But at what cost? I asked softly. Is it worth tearing your family apart? Worth teaching Nathan that relationships are transactional, that love comes with price tags? Jessica sank onto a kitchen stool, the fight seemingly draining out of her. You don't understand what it's like, always feeling like you're not enough, always having to prove your worth. I understand more than you think, I said. I spent years as a teacher, watching parents push their children to succeed at any cost. I've seen what happens when people measure their value by their possessions or social status. Henry moved closer to his daughter. Jessica, I know I wasn't the father you needed growing up. I put my career ahead of you and your mother. I set impossible standards and then wasn't there to help you meet them. Some of this need to appear perfect, to have the best of everything, that's on me. Jessica looked up at her father, surprise evident on her face. It was clearly the first time she'd heard him take responsibility for his parenting failures. The financial counselor says we need to sell the house, she said quietly. Move to an apartment or a small rental until we pay down our debts. She's right, William said. We can't keep doing this. Jess, I'm withdrawing from my retirement to pay credit card bills. We're one emergency away from complete financial collapse. What about Nathan? His school, his friends? Kids are resilient, I offered. What matters most to Nathan is having parents who are present and not stressed all the time. He doesn't care about the size of his house or the brand of his clothes. Jessica turned to me, vulnerability replacing her usual defensive posture. I've made such a mess of things, haven't I? We all have, William said, taking her hand. But we can fix this, together. The first step, Henry said, is complete financial transparency. No more secrets, no more hidden accounts or credit cards. Jessica nodded slowly. And what about Margaret? Where does she fit in all this? All eyes turned to me. This was the moment of truth, the time to establish clear, healthy boundaries while still being part of my son's family. I want to be Nathan's grandmother, and the new baby's too, I said firmly. Not a bank, not a judge, just a grandmother who loves her family. I'm happy to help with specific needs for the children, education, activities, medical expenses. But those decisions need to be made together, with transparency and mutual respect. That sounds fair, Jessica admitted. And I'd like regular time with Nathan, without having to negotiate for it or feel like I'm walking on eggshells. William nodded. Absolutely. Maybe a standing date each week and family dinners twice a month. I'd like that very much. Jessica looked at me directly. I owe you an apology. Margaret, for the things I said, for trying to use Nathan to manipulate you. I was desperate and scared. But that's no excuse. Apology accepted, I said simply. There would be time for deeper healing later. For now, acknowledging the wrongdoing was enough. So what happens next? William asked, looking between his father-in-law and me. Henry laid out his proposal. He and Diane would help with the immediate debt crisis, but only if William and Jessica committed to the financial counseling program and followed through on the necessary lifestyle changes. They would need to sell the house, cut up the credit cards, and live on a strict budget for at least 2 years. And most importantly, he concluded, looking pointedly at Jessica, no more using Nathan as a pawn. Margaret gets to be his grandmother, unconditionally. Jessica nodded, subdued but seemingly sincere. I understand. As the conversation wound down, I heard Nathan's footsteps on the stairs. A moment later, he peeked around the kitchen doorway. Is the grown-up talk over? Can Grandma stay for dinner? William looked at me questioningly. I smiled. I'd love to stay for dinner, if that's all right with everyone. Jessica managed a small smile. Of course, it won't be anything fancy, just pasta. We're economizing. Pasta sounds perfect, I said. And maybe Nathan can help me make garlic bread. Yes. Nathan pumped his fist in the air. I'm a great helper. As we worked together in the kitchen, I felt cautiously optimistic. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust had been broken on all sides and would take time to rebuild. Old patterns wouldn't change overnight, but we had taken the first difficult steps toward healing our fractured family, and for now, that was enough. Christmas at William and Jessica's was a subdued affair compared to previous years. They had listed the house for sale and were already packing non-essential items, preparing for the move to a modest apartment in January. The usual elaborate decorations had been replaced by simpler ones, many handmade by Nathan in school or created during crafting sessions with William. I arrived early on Christmas morning, arms laden with carefully chosen gifts. For Nathan, books and educational toys rather than the expensive electronic gadgets Jessica might have preferred in the past. For the expecting parents, practical items for the new baby and a handmade quilt I'd spent weeks creating. And for Jessica specifically, a small jewelry box that had belonged to my mother, an olive branch, a piece of family history to welcome her into our shared future. "Grandma's here," Nathan shouted, flinging open the door before I could ring the bell. He was still in his pajamas, vibrating with the particular excitement only a child on Christmas morning can generate. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." I laughed as he relieved me of some packages and pulled me inside. The house looked different, emptier, with bare spots on the walls where expensive artwork had once hung, but it felt warmer somehow, more lived in. Jessica emerged from the kitchen, wearing a simple sweater and jeans instead of her usual designer outfit. Her pregnancy was just beginning to show, a small bump visible beneath the soft fabric. "Margaret, Merry Christmas." Her greeting was sincere if slightly awkward. We were still finding our footing in this new arrangement. "Merry Christmas, Jessica." "Something smells wonderful." "Just cinnamon rolls, nothing fancy." She smoothed her sweater self-consciously. "We're trying to focus on experiences rather than things this year." The financial counselor's suggestion. "That sounds lovely," I said, meaning it. Some of my favorite Christmas memories with William were the simplest ones. William appeared, carrying mugs of coffee. "Mom, perfect timing. The rolls are just coming out of the oven." The morning unfolded with a gentle rhythm. We watched Nathan open his gifts, his excitement undiminished by the less extravagant offerings. He was especially thrilled with the dinosaur encyclopedia I'd given him, immediately sprawling on the floor to examine the detailed illustrations. When Jessica opened my gift, she looked genuinely touched, running her fingers over the inlaid wood of the jewelry box. "This is beautiful. Margaret, are you sure you want me to have it?" "Absolutely. It's been in my family for generations." "Now it's part of your family, too." Her eyes welled with tears. Pregnancy hormones, perhaps, but also, I hoped, a recognition of the significance of the gesture. Later, as William and Nathan set up a new board game, Jessica and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen, putting the finishing touches on Christmas dinner. "The house sale is moving quickly," she said, arranging rolls in a basket. "We've already had 2 offers, both above asking price." "That's good news." "Yes, though it's still hard to think about leaving. We put so much into making this place perfect." She sighed. "Or what I thought was perfect. Anyway, change is never easy," I offered. "But sometimes it's necessary." She nodded, then looked at me directly. "I want you to know I'm committed to making this work. The financial plan, the counseling, our family relationship. I've been difficult, I know that, but I'm trying to change. I believe you are, I said, and surprisingly, I did. The Jessica standing before me seemed humbler, more authentic than the polished, defensive woman I'd known before. It takes courage to face your mistakes and make changes. William told me about the custodial account you set up for Nathan, she said. That was a smart way to help him without enabling our bad habits. I would have hated that idea a few months ago, but now I see the wisdom in it. I'm setting up the same arrangement for the new baby. I told her, equal treatment for both my grandchildren. Her hand went to her stomach. We found out yesterday. It's a girl. A granddaughter. I smiled, genuinely delighted. How wonderful. We're thinking of naming her after my grandmother, Eleanor. She was the one stable, loving presence in my childhood. Eleanor is a beautiful name. There was a moment of comfortable silence between us, perhaps the first we'd ever shared. Margaret, Jessica said finally, I owe you a proper apology. Not just for the credit card and the manipulation with Nathan, but for years of keeping you at arm's length, for not appreciating what you bring to our family. Thank you, I said simply. And I apologize too, for any ways I made you feel judged or unwelcome. We both want what's best for William and the children. Maybe we can focus on that common ground. She nodded, a tentative smile forming. I'd like that. The financial counseling sessions continued weekly, sometimes with heated arguments and tears, but gradually producing positive changes. William and Jessica sold their house in January, moving to a two-bedroom apartment in a modest but family-friendly complex. Jessica found a part-time job in content marketing that she could do from home, contributing to their income while still being present for Nathan. I settled into a comfortable routine with my grandson, picking him up from school each Wednesday and spending the afternoon together. Sometimes we went to museums or parks. Other times we simply baked cookies in my apartment or read books together. The regular, uninterrupted time allowed our relationship to deepen without the shadow of financial tension hanging over us. By March, William reported that they had paid off two of their credit cards completely and were making progress on the others. They had sold Jessica's Audi, replacing it with a practical used sedan. The designer clothes and luxury items had been consigned, the proceeds going toward their debt repayment plan. None of these changes came easily. Jessica struggled with the loss of status among her Pittsford friends, some of whom gradually drifted away when she could no longer participate in their expensive lunches and shopping trips. William had to face his own complicity in their financial disaster, acknowledging that he'd enabled Jessica's spending out of a desire to keep peace and maintain appearances. But there were unexpected benefits, too. Without the pressure of maintaining their lavish lifestyle, both William and Jessica seemed less stressed. They started having weekly game nights with Nathan, spent more time outdoors, and even began volunteering at a local food bank, something Jessica admitted she would never have considered in her previous life. As for me, I found a new sense of purpose beyond being just a grandmother or financial resource. When Jessica's pregnancy progressed to the point where she needed more rest, I stepped in to help with Nathan and household tasks. I joined a committee at my old school district, using my teaching experience to mentor new educators. And I finally took that painting class I'd been putting off for years, discovering a latent talent that brought me joy. One Saturday in April, William called with an unexpected invitation. Mom, we're having a small gathering tomorrow, just family and a few close friends. We wanted to thank everyone who supported us through these changes. Would you come? Of course, I said, touched to be included. Should I bring anything? There was a pause. Then William asked hesitantly, Actually, Nathan was hoping you might make a cake, something with dinosaurs. Maybe he still talks about that birthday cake you made. My heart swelled. I'd be delighted to. I spent the rest of the day baking and decorating. My fingers remembered the techniques despite the months that had passed. This time, I created a simpler design, a single-tier chocolate cake with green frosting and carefully molded fondant dinosaurs arranged in a prehistoric scene. It wasn't as elaborate as the birthday cake had been, but it was made with the same love and attention to detail. When I arrived at their apartment the next day, cake box carefully balanced in my arms, Jessica answered the door. Her pregnancy was in its final weeks, her belly prominent beneath a simple blue dress. "Margaret," she greeted me warmly. "Is that a cake you didn't have to go to all that trouble?" "It was no trouble," I assured her. "William mentioned Nathan might like it." "He'll be thrilled. Come in, everyone's in the living room." Their apartment was modest but cheerful, decorated with family photos and Nathan's artwork. They had made it a home, despite having a fraction of the space and none of the luxury of their previous house. In the living room, I was surprised to find not only William, Nathan, and Henry, but also Diane, Jessica's mother, and a couple I didn't recognize who were introduced as William's colleagues from work. Nathan rushed over when he saw me, eyes widening at the cake box. "Is that a dinosaur cake? Grandma, can I see?" "Let's put it in the kitchen first, then you can peek," I suggested, not wanting to risk an accident. After the cake was safely deposited, we rejoined the gathering. The atmosphere was relaxed and genuine, so different from the tense, status-conscious gatherings of the past. Jessica moved easily among her guests, no longer performing the role of perfect hostess, but simply enjoying the company. William clinked his glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming. Jessica and I wanted to gather the people who mean the most to us, who've supported us through a challenging time." Jessica stood beside him, her hand resting on her belly. "The last few months haven't been easy, but they've been necessary. We're learning to live differently, to value what truly matters." Her eyes met mine across the room. Family, friendship, integrity, these are the real treasures in life, not possessions or status. "We have some news to share," William continued. "First, as of yesterday, we are officially debt-free except for my student loans." A cheer went up from the small group. "And second," Jessica added, smiling, "I've been offered a permanent position with the marketing firm I've been freelancing for. It's part-time, flexible hours, with the option to work from home, the perfect arrangement for our growing family." More congratulations followed. As the gathering broke into smaller conversations, Henry approached me, a glass of iced tea in hand. "They've come a long way," he observed. "They have." I agreed. "It's remarkable, really. Not without your help. Your willingness to stand firm, even when it was painful, gave them the wake-up call they needed." "And your intervention," I reminded him. "That took courage, confronting Jessica about her behavior." He nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps we've all learned something from this. I know I have. I'm trying to be a better father, a better grandfather, to give support without enabling. It's a delicate balance," I acknowledged. "Speaking of which," Henry said, lowering his voice, "Diane and I have been talking. We'd like to contribute to those custodial accounts you set up for the grandchildren. Match your contributions, if you're amenable." "I think that would be wonderful," I said sincerely. "A joint investment in their future." Nathan bounded over, interrupting our conversation. "Grandma, can we have the cake now I told everyone about the dinosaurs? If your parents say it's time for dessert, then certainly." The cake was a hit, especially with Nathan, who insisted on identifying each dinosaur species for the guests. Jessica served the slices, complimenting my handiwork with genuine appreciation. "This is delicious. Margaret, you have to teach me how to make these fondant figures sometime, for Eleanor's first birthday. Perhaps—" "I'd love to," I said, surprised and touched by the invitation. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. From the humiliation at Nathan's birthday party to the credit card conflict, from painful separation to gradual reconciliation, we had weathered a storm that might have permanently damaged our family. Instead, we had emerged stronger, with clearer boundaries and deeper understanding. Jessica and I would never be best friends, but we had found a mutual respect that provided a foundation for a genuine relationship. William had reclaimed his voice in his marriage and reconnected with the values his father and I had taught him. And Nathan, sweet, innocent Nathan, had his family intact, albeit changed, and two grandmothers who adored him. The custodial accounts for both grandchildren would provide for their education and future needs, without enabling the destructive patterns of the past. More importantly, the children would grow up understanding the value of money, the importance of living within one's means, and the priceless worth of family bonds that couldn't be bought or sold. 6 months later, on a crisp October day, I stood in line at the Rochester Museum of Science with Nathan, now 6 years old, and baby Eleanor, strapped to my chest in a carrier. Jessica had returned to work part-time, and our Wednesday afternoons had expanded to include childcare for both grandchildren, an arrangement that brought me immeasurable joy. "Grandma, look!" Nathan pointed excitedly to a poster advertising a new paleontology workshop for children. "Can I sign up, please?" "We'll have to ask your parents," I said. "But I don't see why not. It's educational, after all." "Dad says educational things are the best way to spend money," he informed me solemnly. "Better than just stuff that breaks or gets boring." I smiled, hearing William's financial lessons taking root. "Your dad is a wise man." "Mom says you're wise too," Nathan continued, surprising me. "She told Dad that you taught her the most valuable lesson about money." "Did she now? And what lesson was that? That money can't buy the things that really matter?" He frowned, trying to remember the exact words. "Like love and respect and, integrity." "What's integrity, Grandma?" "Integrity means doing the right thing, even when it's difficult." I explained, touched by Jessica's words. "It means being honest and standing by your principles. Like when you wouldn't give Mom and Dad more money even though they were mad at you," he asked innocently. I nearly stumbled in surprise. "You knew about that." He nodded. "I heard them talking. Mom said she was wrong to try to make you give them money, and that she respects you now because you didn't give in." Out of the mouths of babes, I adjusted Eleanor, who was beginning to fuss, buying time to formulate a response appropriate for a 6-year-old. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "the most loving thing we can do is say no when someone asks for something that might harm them, even if it makes them upset with us at first." Nathan considered this, his young face serious. "Like when you won't let me have ice cream before dinner, even though I really, really want it." I laughed. "Something like that, yes, though the situation with your parents was a bit more complicated. But you're all friends now," he stated confidently. "Yes, we are," I agreed. "Better than friends, we're family." After our museum visit, I dropped the children off at William and Jessica's new home, a modest but comfortable 3-bedroom house they had purchased in a family-friendly neighborhood. They had stuck to their financial plan diligently, rebuilding their credit and saving for a reasonable down payment before taking the plunge into homeownership again. Jessica greeted us at the door, looking tired but content after her workday. Eleanor squealed with delight at the sight of her mother, reaching out pudgy arms. "There's my girl," Jessica cooed, "taking the baby." "And my dinosaur expert, did you have fun at the museum?" "It was awesome." Nathan launched into a detailed account of everything we'd seen and done. While he chattered, Jessica met my eyes over Eleanor's head. "Thank you," she mouthed silently. I nodded, understanding that her gratitude extended beyond just the afternoon of childcare. "Would you like to stay for dinner?" she offered aloud. "William's picking up ingredients for tacos on his way home." "I'd love to," I accepted. "Can I help you set up?" We worked together in the kitchen, Jessica preparing vegetables while I entertained Eleanor in her high chair. Nathan sat at the table, drawing pictures of the dinosaurs we'd seen. "I heard you told Nathan I taught you a valuable lesson about money," I mentioned casually. Jessica looked up from the tomato she was dicing. "He told you that children repeat everything, haven't you noticed?" I smiled to show I wasn't upset. She laughed softly. "I should know that by now." Setting down her knife, she turned to face me. "But it's true. You did teach me something important, something my own parents never managed to, despite their financial success." "What's that?" "That true wealth isn't measured in possessions or appearances. It's found in relationships, in integrity, in peace of mind." She glanced around her modest kitchen. "We have so much less than we used to, in material terms, but in every way that matters, we're richer." I was deeply moved by her sincerity. "You've come a long way, Jessica." "We all have." She resumed her chopping. "The financial counselor says we're her success story. She wants us to speak to some of her other clients, share our experience." "Will you do it?" "I think so. If our mistakes and recovery can help others, that seems worthwhile." She smiled ruefully. The old Jessica would never have considered such a thing, admitting failure publicly unthinkable. But now, it feels right. William arrived home shortly after, bringing not only taco ingredients, but also news. He had received the promotion to partner at his firm, 2 years ahead of schedule. "That's wonderful," I exclaimed, hugging him. "It is," he agreed. "But we're not changing our lifestyle. The extra income goes straight to the children's education funds and our retirement accounts. After we take a modest family vacation next summer," Jessica amended. "We've budgeted for it, saved specifically. The financial counselor approves. A perfectly reasonable celebration." I agreed. As we gathered around their table that evening, William, Jessica, Nathan, baby Eleanor, and myself, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The painful confrontations and difficult boundaries of the past had given way to something authentic and healthy. We had weathered a storm that might have torn our family apart permanently and instead found our way to safer shores. Jessica caught my eye across the table and smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "We should do this every week," she suggested. "Family dinner on Wednesdays after your museum adventures with the kids." "I'd like that very much," I said, my heart full. Later that evening, as I prepared to leave, William walked me to my car. "You know," he said, "I never properly thanked you." "For what?" "For standing your ground, for loving us enough to say no." He shook his head ruefully. "I was so angry with you at the time. I couldn't see that you were trying to help us in the only way that would actually make a difference." "It wasn't easy," I admitted. "There were moments I almost gave in, just to keep the peace, to maintain my relationship with Nathan." "I'm glad you didn't." He hugged me tightly. "Dad always said you were the strongest person he knew." He was right. As I drove home in the gathering dusk, I thought about James. He would have been proud of how things had turned out, of how William had found his way back to the values we'd raised him with. He would have delighted in Nathan's curiosity and baby Eleanor's sweet temperament, and he would have approved of the boundaries I'd established, painful though they had been at the time. The next morning, I received a text message from Jessica with a photo attached. It showed Nathan at the breakfast table, proudly displaying a school project, a family tree with all of our names and pictures. Nathan insisted you should be at the center, next to James. Jessica had written, "He says you're the roots that hold everyone together. He's right. Thank you for being our foundation, even when we tried to push you away." I saved the photo, my heart full. The journey had been difficult, the confrontations painful, but the outcome, a healthy, honest family relationship, was worth every moment of discomfort. Sometimes love requires standing firm, even when it breaks your heart. Sometimes the most valuable gift we can give isn't money or possessions, but boundaries, respect, and unwavering principles. And sometimes the most precious reward isn't gratitude or recognition, but simply the joy of sitting around a table with the people you love, knowing that your relationship is built on something more valuable than gold: truth, respect, and unconditional love. When Nathan and I stood before the giant ankylosaurus model, his small hand clutching mine tightly, I knew that my difficult decision had been the right one. Sometimes love demands the courage to set boundaries, even when it temporarily causes pain. My family is stronger now. Jessica respects me, and William has found his voice again. If my story has touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. What would you do in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below.